Did we do it? We did it. Look at that. Technology is powerful. Hello. My name is Naomi Calhoun. Isn't this fun to be here? This is the Live Reality Games podcast, a podcast about live reality games and other things, mostly live reality games. Today, we are recapping episode 7 of Survivor Maryland, Major Conflict. And with me today is Steven. Steven, how is it going?
I'm doing well, Naomi. I had to start the rant. I have a very important question to ask you.
Woo!
Are Harry Potter books 2 through 6 pure filler? Because I just cannot believe we have Mike, who plays on the Quidditch teams, being like, yeah, I've seen movie 1 and movie 7. I don't think the rest of the movies matter. Probably not the books either. I haven't read those. I'm just like, oh my gosh. As an English literature major, I cannot condone this behavior. I cannot root for Mike to win now. This is all terrible to me.
Well, I think, honestly, the statement for me that was more insane out of Mike's mouth was like, how do you not know? Literally, I have all of my Harry Potter books like right next to me right now. And I'll say this. I don't remember the Quidditch positions because I'm a grown person who had to put information in my brain that I need for real life. Like, I don't know the positions. So to just be like offended that somebody wouldn't know the positions of the Harry Potter Quidditch game, to me, I was like, get the hell out of here, Mike.
Naomi,
but yes, I agree. They're not filler. They're so good.
I'm judging you harshly for not memorizing all the positions of the Quidditch field.
All you got to know is the
chasers, the beaters, the keepers. Wow, I am forgetting a position. Okay, let's move on before I burst.
You're forgetting the seeker.
There we go, the seeker. I was like, man, I'm forgetting something important here.
And that's embarrassing. I don't remember that.
Revoke my Harry Potter card. I need to go reread the books for penance.
I just like that confessional. I was just like, I was rolling my eyes so hard. Whatever.
Well, I don't think we're gonna have to worry about this much longer. I think the Mega Doug Alliance will take care of our Mike problem very soon. What do you think?
I'm rooting for Mike. I really am. It feels very Ghost Island, but actually in Ghost Island, I was only rooting for the people pre-merge. Post-merge, I was like, they fucking deserve it. So like, this is where I'm rooting for everybody. And then we're gonna get to the post-merge, and Santi and Doug are just gonna steamroll everyone, and I'm like, they deserve it. How could they not vote out roommates? So
I think we should let's break down Liam's game first before we go bemoan what we might see in the future.
Rip.
So I love this opening scene with Liam. Liam is at his parents' house and he is mad. And he's just like, it's not about me winning anymore. It's about making these other people lose this game and trying to take them down with me. I'm just like, I am here for that conviction. Let's play Petty Survivor, please.
Have you ever? I've had that before where I've given a confessional after someone I really care about gets voted out. You can see it in an episode of Survivor Buffalo where I just am screaming at the camera and I'm like, I'm going to avenge Jared. I'm going to do this. And then like I go out the vote after. Like it doesn't happen. You always want to avenge the people who helped you, but it like never works.
But this is what really got me was that we have this, Liam takes a stance.
Yeah.
And then doesn't act on it like I wanted him to.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think this whole episode is a testament to the idea that you can't get comfortable when you're playing Survivor. You can't for 1 second think like, I would say after a swap, after this kind of scramble situation where somebody really well goes home, you cannot pretend like this is just an easy peasy game of Survivor anymore. I think that's what happened to Liam and Mike. They just thought, well, we're going to take out Josh. Okay. And then they didn't do anything.
I'd like to put forth the theory that I think the issue with with Mike and Liam's game was they stayed too much in like a tribal mindset saying, let's focus on our tribe and what's going on in our tribe and get situated in our tribe versus realizing like, no, we need to worry about all 13 people in this game at this point and what's going on. And I don't think they reacted appropriately to what happened in another tribe.
I mean, absolutely. I think more than anything, why would you ever not assume that in a situation where somebody on red went home and yellow's numbers stayed intact, that doesn't have to do with Doug and Santi, because Santi's on that tribe and Santi votes with the 3 yellows.
Mm-hmm.
So how on earth can you not piece it together that Santi is talking to Doug to protect Doug's interests by keeping the yellow tribe in the game? Like, I guess, I feel like I've been watching all of these games where people like aren't thinking more steps ahead.
Doug is.
Well, Doug is, and nobody else is. Santi is, and nobody else is, and it's really frustrating. And I actually think what I wanted to talk about is I thought it was really interesting that on the first side we see Jasmine go home because she is thinking one step ahead. Mm-hmm. She's thinking about getting out Santi, but she's not thinking about the people that she is working with, which she doesn't have a relationship with. Mm. And then on the other side, you have Liam, who is not thinking any steps ahead, and he also suffers because of it. So it is this weird, interesting thing where, like, Doug and Santi are thinking so many steps ahead that, like, literally anybody else who tries to sort of break the mold goes home. It's pretty crazy.
Well, I want to... You made a comparison to Ghost Island. I want to, like, deepen that comparison. Mm-hmm. Because in Ghost Island, we see they had 2 tribes of 10. They swapped to 2 tribes of 9. I believe, and then eventually they swap to 3 tribes. And so when they get to this tribe of 3, you get Dominic, who is the runner-up this season. He ends up throwing a challenge and blind signing Bradley, a member from his original tribe and theoretically in his alliance. And at that point, Dominic is looking like, hey, we have a majority going to this merge. So what, like it's going to be an 8-5.
Yeah, right? Or I think it was even 4. I think it was an absurd number.
It was 8-4. It was 8-5, 9-4. They had a massive advantage, and he's kind of looking like, who's going to give me trouble down the line? And he says Bradley's going to give me trouble. He's an ally of someone else I think is going to cause issues later on. He's super strategic, and he takes him out, and it's beautiful. Here, on the other hand, like when we first see Mike and Liam strategizing with Doug, Sadie, and saying, hey, you know, Josh is our weak link. We're willing to give him up, and at that point, I'm like, yeah, you know, build. It's okay because we haven't seen what's happened to the other tribe. But as soon as Jasmine goes home, I was like, man, you have to reevaluate. Is getting rid of Josh the correct strategy, or now is the time to draw him and say, well, nope, he's my real alliance?
And I'll say this: I think in any post-swap situation that anyone finds themselves in, you should always be considering every person a potential option. Mm-hmm. In the regards of, like, they dismissed Josh because they were going to target Josh before the swap. Mm-hmm. But it's not before the swap anymore. So you should be feasibly going, well, let me reconsider my relationship with Josh because perhaps he's a tool for me going forward now. And I think this is their biggest mistake because you have someone like Delaram who, sorry to Delaram, is not super involved in the game. And you have someone like Abby who's not super involved in the game. And it's like, so you want to work with Doug and Sadie? Like, I don't understand. Why do you want to work with these 2 yellows? You should be utilizing Josh. And I think that's for me the biggest lesson to take away from this is, and you know, people love to complain that, like, in a swap, when people stick together with the numbers, it's boring. And that's true. But otherwise, your ass is grass. Like, Liam wants to vote out Josh, and it gives the 3 yellow people, like the 3 yellow players on his tribe, room to move around. Like, it's you should always be considering everybody as an asset before you think about cutting them.
Yeah. I mean, if we had seen Dane go home in the prior episode instead of Jasmine, if Dane goes home, then I can maybe more sanction. Yeah, let's let them vote out Josh together. Let's build trust. And honestly, I think Doug might have just done it at that point to say, hey, you know, this brings better parity in between tribe numbers, and it gives me new allies, and I'm going to need that if I see my old tribe get whittled down on the Pascala 2.0. But that doesn't happen. Jasmine goes home, and Josh and Mike and Liam kind of cede all initiative to Doug for Doug to do what he wants.
I mean, I think we can kind of start at the very beginning because it's fascinating to me that Mike and Liam have the idea. Their brains go, we should talk to Josh. And they go, I don't know, whatever. And then they move on. Like, I think what I have to say is Anders does a really good job of telling the story of how these 2 factions are competing for Josh's attention and love. and Mike and Liam just give up, and Doug wins. And I think it watching it a second time, and if you just watch what Doug is doing, Doug is playing like a mastermind game. And people were sort of annoyed about it in the chat, and I have to say, like, we gotta recognize Doug.
Mm-hmm. Well,
My theory is, this is what I was gonna say, which I don't know if you watch RuPaul's Drag Race.
No, I don't.
But on RuPaul's Drag Race All Stars 2, there's a queen called Alaska, and Alaska was so good, and she won like almost every challenge. And people were annoyed, fans were annoyed that she was making some snaky moves, and she was so good she was winning every challenge, and then spoiler alert, she won the season. And that's what Doug reminds me of, is Doug is so snaky and is doing anything to get himself ahead, and people are annoyed by it, but Doug is just that good. Like, I'm sorry, he and Santi are running it, so you can't get that mad at it.
Yeah.
You know?
One thing that impressed me was we see Jasmine get blindsided, and then we see Santi and Doug really mend ties with Mike and Liam. And Mike and Liam are pretty, well, maybe not Liam and Santi, but Mike and Liam seem pretty amenable to like forgiving and moving on. And that probably wasn't, for Liam it wasn't, but that is like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. You need to be having lower warning signs come up here, and it's not.
I'm curious because I don't think Liam talked about this in his sort of recap interview with Anders, but I'm curious to know how invested Liam was at this game, because like he's not thinking ahead that much, but I don't know if it was just like, oh, I'm on break, I'm not really thinking ahead, or if he just like, I guess in Survivor, if you're a new player, you never really think about the fact that people don't want to do what you want to do. And so it's very interesting to, I would want to ask Liam, like, were you thinking about the best interests of Santi and Doug and whether those aligned with your interests? Because Santi and Doug, what they're really good at is recognizing, like, Liam has an advantage. Liam might use that advantage against me because I just betrayed him. So let's take out Liam. Like, they're really good at seeing what everybody's interests and sort of alignments are.
What cracked me up was Mike and Liam say, you know, we need to get rid of Josh really to weaken Santi. I'm just like, but Doug's his roommate. Getting rid of Doug would weaken Santi too.
And I mean, we don't see this till way down the line, but like the conversation that Santi and Doug have with Josh, you could have told Josh to vote for his mom. He would have been like, oh, okay, yeah, fine. If my mom's coming for me, I'll vote for her. Like, he was so nonplussed. So they could have gone up to him and said, let's take out Doug. Doug is Santi's roommate. Don't you want to be aligned with Santi without Doug? And Josh would have been like, yeah, okay, that sounds good.
Well, nothing against Josh, but he seems to have a very poor read on the game, or maybe Mike and Liam were playing him just that well. But we get confessional Josh saying, Josh is like, everything is great. I'm in a strong alliance. Mike and Liam and Santi and I, all the guys together, is like, oh, that's really not what's going on. And it's not until Doug and Santi formally pop the bubble and say, look, dude, you're next. He's like, oh, okay, let's do everything.
You know, it's so funny, too, because Josh looks like when you tell a little kid that they're getting a puppy for their birthday. He's just staring at them like with his big eyes and his big glasses like, oh, they're voting for me? And you're going to help me? Okay, sounds good. Like, he's just got this, like, big doe-eyed look on his face that I was absolutely laughing my ass off during this because he's just so sweet. And, like, I didn't want Josh to go home, but I didn't want Liam to go home. So it's just, what a heartbreaker. I mean, I'll say it here. This boot order is worse than Winners at War. And Winners at War sucked. This hurts
hot
me
takes
more.
From Naomi.
To see Eric, Jasmine, Liam go one by one fucking blows. And even before that, like, to see Ivy and Teresa and Natalia go, like, those guys were all really funny and didn't get enough opportunity to shine. And even Gucci Man himself. Like, it sucks. I'm bummed.
So some other things that happened pre-challenge that were interesting was Santi and Angie, whatever.
I know, Santi, it's so hard. The A's and the
I know,
like, it's so hard.
Santi
Vote
and
out somebody
Angie
with an A vowel in their name.
attempt to reconcile-ish or talk it out, and it just gets worse as a result.
Yeah, this was really interesting because I actually think Angie does have a little bit of a benefit of a doubt where like Santi can kind of believe that Angie, you know, what Angie is saying is basically like, well, you were sketching me out.
Mhm.
And Santi is much more of a mastermind that Angie understands, where I don't know if I walked away from watching that clip thinking that Santi understood that Angie is also like her cogs are turning constantly. So it's my hope that Angie is still able to sort of appeal to Santi and appeal to Santi's sort of ego and say, well, you're so smart, you should just help me and make something work. But I don't know. I agree this conversation was
I was wondering if at some point Angie had told Santi, look, like, I really want to work with you, right?
Yeah.
I was working with you and things were going well, but I felt super uncomfortable jumping ship from old tribal alliance with people I knew and worked with to a bunch of people I didn't know, and you knew them, which is fine. I'm glad, but I didn't like the idea of just like of starting over with all these strangers and you and worrying like, what if they blindside me?
Totally.
Like,
yeah.
I wonder if she was trying or maybe tried framing in that thing where it's like, I want to work with you, Santi. The issue's not you; it's working with all these other people.
Yeah, exactly. It's really I think the thing with Angie and what she benefits from is that Santi really was sneaky in blindsiding Jasmine, whereas Angie voting for Dane is not sneaky. It's just, I'm voting for yellow. So like you said, exactly, she has the benefit of saying, I was sticking with tribal lines because I care about our tribe. And what I'm kind of interested to see is if, let's say they go to tribal next episode, if Santi says, you know what, it's beneficial to me, should we go into a merge, to lose a big muscular threat. That's a weird way of phrasing a challenge threat. Now, Morgan did a really good job this episode, but Morgan is not perceived as a challenge threat. So could it possibly be in Santi's best interest to eliminate Dane or Tim right before the merge, similar to what you said what Dom did, to get out somebody who might be a sort of challenge threat going into the merge?
So I don't think he's eliminating Tim anytime soon, right? Because they're friends.
I think it would be Dane. Yeah.
I think the three people I think have a high chance of being eliminated will be Dane, and then Angie,
Morgan,
and
Morgan. Yeah.
Right. And I think honestly, they're going to be looking at, I think at this point, they're going to be looking at taking out maybe Angie. I think honestly, after like the follow-up between Santi and Angie, I think Santi, to my understanding, is just like, I don't think I can work with her. I think this is going to be a problem.
Yeah. And I'll be really curious to see if next episode, if tribes are considering the merge and considering what might happen, because we're at 12, right?
Yeah.
So my guess would be merge 11, final 2, jury of 7. And so, you know, that shit's gonna be weird. Or it could be final 3, jury of 7, and we merge
or even jury 8.
Jury of 8. Yes, that's what I meant. I'm bad at math.
So you brought the count into the podcast.
Yes, exactly. Oy vey. So this Angie and Santi thing was like so painful to watch, but it almost felt like when Russell Hantz would like talk to the women and they'd just be like, sure, whatever you want, Russell, and then they'd walk away and be like, that fucking rat bastard. Like that's what it kind of felt like, where Angie was like, you just destroyed our relationship. But I thought it was really interesting to watch. We finally got one of those real confessionals where people are just lying their ass off to each other and we all know the stakes. So I thought it was a really fascinating like conversation.
The last thing that really fascinated about everything pre-challenge was when you see Chikasha 2.0, everyone's like, yes, Josh is the boo, and you see, I don't think you see it, but you hear Sadie constantly like, wait, who's Josh voting for? Who's the decode boo here? Like, who, like, trying to figure out who that is, and Liam and Mike are like, nah, don't worry about it, and you can just tell like Sadie, who's coming out as a big strategist, just like, this is not okay. I cannot let this. We can't just let this go where they vote whoever we want. And we end up seeing it's Delaram tends to be the weak link or whatever that they kind of get. Well, Liam sloughs his vote on too, but it's I don't know. I thought that was fascinating. Where Sadie and Doug don't know who that vote is, and I think whenever you don't know who are we telling that person to vote for, it's a bad sign for you.
Yeah, I think also just Survivor 101, you always come up with a decoy boot, but you never. Here's what you do: you always come up with a decoy boot, but you never ever tell the person that they're the decoy boot. It's so tricky because I've had relationships in live games where like it falls apart because I'm lying to one person and saying, so like I'm saying to person B, vote person A, but I'm really voting person B, but then person A hears that I'm voting for them and then doesn't trust me, and it just like spirals out of control. And I think that's the really, really tricky line to toe, but you always kind of need to have like two bottom tier targets and always be pitting them against each other. And then come up with a third. Say, vote for me.
And I understand it's hard because like you have this alliance of 6, right? You have three former Chicago, 3 former Pascala, all initially agreeing to vote Josh, and it's just like, well, for a tight group of 6, who are we going to give away here? And yeah, that's a bad answer because then you're like, well, we're not really an alliance of 6, and we're just going to like
right.
And of course, the opposite is like we all trust each other. We're all gonna vote together. Just pray there's no idol, and like pray we don't get our name written down. And man, that's a bad answer.
Yes, especially with an idol. That's what makes it the really sort of most dangerous game. Is like you can't just. Nobody in your game is ever going to feel safe. Nobody in your tribe will ever feel safe if it's a vote where we know that somebody's going to play the idol and we're going to flush it.
I do have a fun story about this. In Survivor Battle of the Bush, which is a live reality game in South Africa, where it was like 12, it was like, I don't know, like 6 or 7 former US players, 6 or 7 former Survivor South Africa players, fans playing. Wendell gets idled out by 1 vote because he and his entire alliance put all their votes on Survivor South Africa's player Ace, and Ace takes out Wendell with that 1 vote. And it is truly something like, wow. Also, Bryce, Isaiah votes for Beyonce, that tribal council.
Oh my God, I remember you telling me about this. I just watched, I was watching the season that Ace is on. That's really funny. Oh my God.
Ace gets his idol. It's amazing.
That's so good. I had a question for you, which is, we see Mike and Liam kind of say, well, Abby wants Josh gone, so I guess we'll vote for Josh. Why on earth do Mike and Liam care what Abby wants to do? She doesn't care what she wants to do. No offense to Abby, because I'm sure Abby is a lovely person, but Abby doesn't care. Why do we care? We
don't get a sense of Abby's agency, to be honest. We're starting to see her more, which is nice, but I don't think she has any. I think if Mike and Liam said, no, we need to vote Doug, Abby would say, sure.
Exactly. Like, why are these guys being like, well,
it's an excuse.
It's so stupid because it's like, well, I guess my kind of alliance mate who doesn't really care about the game wants to vote out this person. And it's just like, what do you mean? Like, make the move that's best for you and drag that person along. That was the thing that they said that when I was rewatching it, I was like, holy shit, that's the dumbest thing I've heard this whole episode. Like,
I think that's a good facade, right? You're just like, well, why are you doing this? Well, Abby wants us to, right? Sure. If that's what you're telling the people as an excuse, yeah, why not? But if that is the reason, that's a bad reason.
It's a very bad reason. So do you want to get to your Challenge Beast winner pick?
Yeah, so all I have to say about this challenge is throwing ladder ball is kind of harder than you'd expect, and there's a bit of a skill for it. It takes me like a couple of throws to really get into the momentum of it. And watching my winner pick, Morgan, become the ladder golf goddess herself and just own the challenge was hilarious and amazing to watch.
That was so good. And she really kicked total ass in that challenge. And I have to say, this is one of my favorite challenges that Survivor Maryland does. There have been some iconic moments from this challenge. I think this challenge to me
Shannon's
is
the army. What?
Shannon's, I know. ROTC, incredible, absolutely incredible. Oh man, Eric King, what a young man.
Well, it's okay. We don't know where Delaram is from either.
Oh man, yeah, this whole thing was so funny. I do appreciate the Mike saying like I told Delaram the answer, because the first time I watched it I had missed where Mike said I told her what the answer was, so I was like, Mike, shut up. But then watching this again I was like, okay, to be fair, Mike told you what the answer was and you still whiffed it, like that's on you. And I honestly I'm really fascinated by like the way that this sort of played out, where people were getting things right and wrong, but like I would be, if I was Mike, he was annoyed at Delaram. I would kind of think, well, let's just get rid of Delaram, because Delaram is almost like a nothing on their tribe at this moment in time. Because she's just there. Do we see anything from Delaram this episode?
Not really. She votes correctly, unlike Abby. I mean, I don't think if you're if you're Mike, I think you want to get rid of Sadie and you want to get rid of Doug and drag Delaram into your lands, because she's going to just shrug and go with Abby.
Yeah. It's a shame, because I think that if Mike and Liam had used Josh to target Delaram, they could have potentially put off the Santi and Doug coming after them, and then use the numbers to take out Doug, or
And
even Sadie.
use the steal vote at that point or something.
Exactly. Like
or even the steal vote this episode.
Right. You had it. And it's just like such a biff that it makes me feel kind of bad that like Liam and Mike just got so complacent. It's like crazy. It happens, but yike. Also, Dane dabbing during the end of the challenge was fucking hilarious. I saw people be like, no, but I was like, no, that's funny as hell.
So we end up, Queen Morgan pulls it out for her tribe with the most time, and also her tribe's able to knock over their stack of dominoes. So life is good for Pascala 2.0. The tribal scramble, it was inevitable that we'd see Doug realize, oh wait, I should keep Josh. Oh wait, I'm remiss with Santi. Oh wait, Josh trusts Santi. Let me use Santi to get Josh on my side. I was waiting for that shoe to drop, and it did. And I was like, this is something that we predicted would happen.
Yeah, and you can see Doug's sort of the cogs moving in his head, and he's talking through this, and you're like, shit, there goes Liam. Like, he's saying it, and I was just like, oh no. There he goes, out the door. Like, it's really masterful on Doug's part, right? He knows exactly what to do. He says, well, I should use Josh. And like, that I love that little moment where he's like, I don't want Josh to go home. You don't want Josh to go home. Let's not vote out Josh. You know what I think it is? I just want to say, like, I think what people don't realize in a game is the power of a vote, because people will really say, I don't want to go, I just want to be with the majority, or I'll do what everyone else is doing. But like, if you don't want to vote somebody, like, don't just, I guess it's like, don't just go with the river until you're sure that you have no other opportunity. Like, your vote is a powerful tool. It's the most powerful tool you have in the game. So be very considerate about where you put your vote. And like, if you don't want to vote for somebody, think about who else you can vote for. That's the big thing, is I think that like what Doug was able to do that Mike and Liam were not, is take the idea of, I don't want to vote for Josh, I should pick somebody else. Let me see who else I can get.
Yeah, you know, there's not much else I feel like we can talk about Liam and Mike's strategy, except like, should they have, so there's a big dilemma for those two. Like, should we tip Josh off that this is happening so he can idle out someone on another tribe if he has the idol? And they ultimately decide, like, no, we're worried about the repercussions. If he does play it, then they ask who tips him off, and it's us, so we'll just let him go home. Should they have reached out to him and tipped him off, or like, honestly, should they just like schemed and plotted against Delaram, Sadie, or Doug? What are your thoughts?
So I think what they should have done, actually, is they should have gone to Josh. I mean, this is the time to make a move. Like, just go to Josh and say, it's me, it's Liam, Mike, Abby. We're 3 votes on this tribe. We think you have an idol, but we don't want you to play it. We want you to have it to ensure your safety. So vote with us. Let's vote out one of the yellows, and you won't have to use your idol for any tribal council we go to. Because I think actually, it's funny, they're so worried about flushing this idol, but what you should actually be considering is the idea of telling your ally, I want you to keep your safety. Let's do something.
I think more important than that, I think they have to realize like, oh, we might slide into minority here. If things are going this way, we actually need his idol as a weapon. His idol is like, I know it's like it's gonna be his idol, not the tribe idol, but still having someone in your alliance with an idol it can be a big game changer come emerge.
100%, especially if you're trying like an idol and an extra vote. Like, I don't know if Liam knew what Liam's advantage was, but you go negotiate what you have. You say to him, look, I've got an extra vote. You have an idol. We control this game. Because I really think Josh is just, you can see Josh is kind of shocked that Mike manipulated him so much. But it's even more fascinating that really it's Santi and Doug using something they all collectively agreed on to shove Mike under a bus to take Josh under their wing. And I think that Mike and Liam could have very easily done the same thing, but they just didn't. And I actually like that you see them go like, should we tell him now after they lose the challenge? They're like, no, it's too early. It's almost like not doing your homework. They just like, they procrastinate until it's tribal council and then one of them goes home. And you get a 0. What did you think of like this idol speculation? Like how convinced they are of Josh having an idol?
I agree that at this point we speculated last week that people just might not be searching because they just think Josh is the idol because he has so much information about said idol. I agree that at a certain point you can just kind of say, well, let's assume they have and blindside them, and as if they do, it's probably the safest bet at that point rather than being burned. I just think at this point they should have done a 180 after seeing Jasmine go home, go to Josh, say, hey Josh, they are targeting you. They're trying to force us to vote you out because they see you as the weakest link. We don't want that. You're important to us. Let's work on knocking these guys out to preserve our alliance. They should have really gone to him so that he was being targeted by them, that they were with Josh 100%, and really try to make it so the old Shikasha 4 would stay strong and just push for Sadie or Doug.
Yes, but and this is I really think there is something to the art of telling somebody that it's going to be them and then flipping the vote. If you can save somebody, they will owe you one, and you can't bank on that. But if it's somebody like Josh, who very clearly like is not is way more out of the loop than he ever thought he was, you should be fully utilizing his vote to benefit you, and you should not consider him an outsider or somebody who like isn't worth your time, because then you're just going to be stuck with a bunch of power players who want to vote you out and a bunch of people who can't help you. Like Josh is that perfect sweet spot of he's helpful, but he's not a hothead or in charge or too emotional. He's like the perfect ally to sort of bring along with you. Whereas Abby is just not invested, but Josh is invested. Josh lives with fucking Micah, for Christ's sake. Like, you know, there you go. Like, perfect ally, and they just dismiss him.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about going forward, how things are going to play out from here. So let's start with Mike and Abby. What is their best move from here?
I think their best move is to win immunity, because I don't think either of them know what to do. Mike's best move is to throw Abby under the bus and say, and I think Mike needs to talk to Santi and say, Santi, like, look, I understand why you took out Liam. He had the advantage. I am with you. Like, I didn't vote for Doug or anything. They voted for Delaram, right?
Liam voted for Delaram.
Okay. Like, it's like, you know, I don't know. I just think it's insane. That they made such a miscalculation, and now they're going to have to live with the consequences. I mean, you tell me what they have to do, because honestly, I watched this and I was like, well, they're fucked.
That's kind of how I feel in general about them. I think it's only a matter of time. I think Mike is going to be targeted eventually for being a physical threat. Even if he makes merge, he's going to be clipped early merge by the new majority alliance we see forming. I think I like the idea of going back to Santi. I don't know if a groveling before Doug was going to help at all at this point. I think, yeah, I honestly don't see Abby and Mike having great longevity in this game.
Yeah, I mean, Mike is also in a terrible spot where he is a physical threat, and so
Yeah, and the
therefore
leader of the Chokasha tribe. It's
right. So therefore, he is a huge threat in this situation. I think Mike's best opportunity is to find that idol
mhm.
and not tell anybody that he has it, and then just pick off Doug. Like if there is any situation that could like really benefit him, it's to find the idol and pick off Doug, or even Sadie, because I think Sadie is somebody who will never work with Mike.
Mm-hmm.
And is that going to happen? I don't know. I really hope Mike goes and looks for it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, at the other side, we see Morgan and Angie. Their best strategy is to win the next challenge too, which is a problem, right? Someone's got to lose the challenge. What do you think they need to be doing right now?
I think either Morgan and Angie need to go to Amanda and say, I'll vote with the 3 yellows. We'll vote with 3 yellow people because we are not threats in the merge. We don't have any power. You can take us out in the merge. But Santi's going to align with Doug, and then you go down in Doug's hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
When you lose Santi, you go up in Doug's hierarchy of care. And so if I'm Amanda or Tim, I do really want to be Doug's number 1 because Doug is doing a great job. And the guy who lives with Doug is Doug's number 1. No freaking question. So grow up and vote him out.
That would be fascinating if we see if we see Angie and Morgan, or heck, even if Tim and Amanda originate this thought themselves, saying, you know, Santi's gonna be a problem because he's gonna work with Doug, he's gonna be close to Doug, he's probably gonna be like Doug's gonna want to get him further in the game than us. If a blind set of Santi now, that would be really fascinating to see.
Exactly. And I think it'd be a very smart move. I think even for Dane and Tim, here's what I think. Dane and Tim, you blame it on Amanda. You just say, Amanda wanted to do it and we couldn't stop her and she had 3 votes. Mm-hmm. And we didn't want to go to rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And it would give us a numbers advantage. For Amanda, you can say to Doug, like, well, like the boys bullied me into it. So like everybody can sort of blame the other people because what you also want to be doing at the same time, and this is much more of like a high risk, high reward situation, is you want to, like, Amanda wants to rise above Tim in the ranks in the Doug hierarchy. Mm-hmm. And Dane needs to be accepted or he's not going anywhere. So like you need to throw somebody in the yellow hierarchy under the bus to become Doug's number 2 or number 1.
Yeah, because one thing I've been wondering about is like, let's say if we merge next episode, right? Let's just magically say we merge at 12, right? So we'd have this massive Doug alliance of 8 people. It would be Doug, Josh, Sadie, Delaram, and then from the other tribe you get Dane, Tim, Amanda, and Santi. We have this massive conglomerate of 8. There'd be a minority of 4. You could pick them off. What happens at the 8? Like where people stand? It's so nebulous. And I think it's a really smart idea for Amanda to kind of look and say, what happens then? Because I really think Tim is going to be very hesitant about voting off Santi because they're out of the game friends. But Amanda, I think, has shown enough game wherewithal to kind of look at Sadie and other players, like where are they standing, where are we going, what do I do, and I think she needs to be selfish of her relationship with Doug and selfish of the relationship she's formed with Tim and get Santi out of that.
Yeah, or I think even for Amanda's benefit, losing Dane would be fine. Like losing Dane would be perfectly fine for Amanda. Yeah. And I think if Amanda works with Morgan and Angie, because this is a bit of a spoilers for Survivor Maryland season 3, the best relationship that the winner of that season, and actually the final 2 of that season, form is this cross-tribe secret alliance. And it takes them all the way to the end. And what do? They get out all of the big threats from their respective tribes around them, and they make the final 2 together. And that's the biggest thing that is super important, is to say, I know that I have big threats around me, and we're just going to pick off our sides one by one and always, always, always protect each other. Mm-hmm. And you go really far. So if Amanda aligns with Morgan and Angie and says, let's just protect each other in our separate alliances, but pick off all of the men around us. We'll see if Amanda would ever consider that. But I think it could be a potentially really great alliance. And what you're saying, I couldn't agree more that Amanda's not thinking ahead. And she needs to, as a Survivor superfan, start thinking ahead really far because she's not in a good spot.
Yeah.
She could probably make final 2 and get shit on, but like I don't want that for Amanda. I want Amanda to have control over her game.
I think Amanda will. If we talk about winner equity at this point, right? I'd say first place Doug beats everyone. Second place, I'd see Sadie taking the reins in that alliance. I can see Amanda being potentially third, right? Because I don't see the jury. I see Tim being dwarfed by the actions of other members of his tribe, at least as of right now. And that can definitely change going forward. I'm also assuming Santi doesn't get taken anywhere close to the end for this because I think Santi has a lot of winner equity as well.
You know, I think a good, maybe, and I don't know if you agree with me on this, please let me know. A good indicator of how somebody is going to do at Final Tribal Council are their confessionals. Oh. Because when you're relaxed and you're just telling your thoughts, like, obviously you're very nervous, but if you can deliver your thoughts very eloquently, like we see how fun and charming someone like Chris T is, and you're like, well, that guy could kick ass at Final Tribal Council. But then sometimes you see, like, how, like, strong-willed someone like Feluke is, and Feluke struggles at Final Tribal Council because she can't give everybody sort of, like, a more humble opinion or a more calm and... I guess the phrasing is like, Feluke is like, yeah, I kicked your ass, so what? Which is like, it works, but if people are mad at you, then they just get more mad at you. Whereas Chris was always able to say, you're a threat, and I took you out because of that. And so if someone like Tim gets to the end, I don't feel like Tim would be a good presenter of his own game because you might have Doug taking credit for all of it. You might have Amanda, rolling her eyes at him. You never know, but to me, I don't think there are a lot of people in this game that could give a good Final Tribal Council. I think there are like 5 people possibly. Yeah. So I'd love to see one of those 5 make it.
Hopefully it's Morgan. Hopefully she sweeps. Welcome to that would be the story of the season. I would love it. So we've talked about the minorities. What is Doug's path to the end from here? How should he shape the remainder of the pre-merge and the opening merge?
It's a great question. I think Doug should throw the challenge and get out Mike. I think if Doug wants to have more control, he should throw the challenge because the other side is too chaotic. And you want to get out somebody who's physically more threatening. Even Abby is physically more threatening than any of the girls on the other tribe. So vote out Abby, vote out Mike, and sort of have a better path at the end. Or I guess Doug could try and go look for the idol, but I don't think Doug really cares about the idol. And I think maybe what Doug needs to do is if the other tribe goes to tribal council, he needs to be with them the whole time, supporting them and giving them advice and doing things for them so that they will say, Doug saved our butts if it works out. But I think Doug should throw it. I think he should throw it and vote out the big threats.
I think if he throws it, he votes out Mike. We merge at 11. And then I think you try maybe take out Abby as long as it keeps Delaram happy or something like that. It's like, I think you can probably do 1 or 2 more votes minority, and then you need to start cutting off like the peripheral tribe members. That's when you vote out your Danes. That's when you vote out your Dalarams. That's when you vote out your Joshes. That's when you take out these more incidental people and try to prevent other people from getting a hold and blindsiding you with them, right?
Yes. So I have to go pretty soon.
Yeah, I'd say the only thing I think the last question I have is, who do you think the surprise guest is next episode?
I hope it's Feluke or somebody made that comment and that made me laugh. Feluke or I kind of hope Chris LeCompte comes back. I love his challenge energy, just ripping a shirt open. That's what I want to see.
Like, what is this? Like they run the challenge for Anders? They're a surrogate host. Is that what they're going to end up doing? I just have no idea what to expect here.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm excited. I can't wait.
All right, Naomi, what else are you up to these days, and how does it rhyme with Survivor New York?
Survivor New York, 7 p.m. tonight. Tune in.
As for me, nothing much going on. I'm writing a midterm to make my students suffer. Hopefully the average is above a 40% this time, please. Yeah, I was very sad until
I'm
today.
so glad I'm not in school. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Remember, you can subscribe on wherever you get your podcasts, and you can like Live Reality Games on Facebook, because that is the most important thing. Connecting on Facebook with us and finding games that you can play or participate in or get involved in any sort of way. Even as a fan, you can get involved. So tune in next week when we talk about episode 8. Who knows what's going to happen, but I feel like I'm going to be sad either way. Just kidding. It's a great season. All right, Steven, thank you so much for talking with me. Always fun to catch up.
Have a good night, y'all.
Bye.